Senator Lankford.
Thank you. Let me just run through some quick questions on this. Director McCabe, thanks for being here as well. Let me hit some high points of some things that I've heard already, just to be able to confirm. You have the resources you need for the Russia investigation. Is that correct?
Sir, we believe it's adequately resourced.
So there's not limitations of resources. You have what you need. The actions about Jim Comey and his release has not curtailed the investigation from the FBI. It's still moving forward.
The investigation will move forward, absolutely.
No agents have been removed that are the ongoing career folks that are doing the investigation.
No, sir.
Is it your impression at this point that the FBI is unable to complete the investigation in a fair and expeditious way because of the removal of Jim Comey?
It is my opinion and belief that the FBI will continue to pursue this investigation vigorously and completely.
Do you need somebody to take this away from you and somebody else to do it?
No, sir.
Okay. Let me ask you a separate question. As I go through the report and tracking through the worldwide threats that was put out, that Director Coates put out, there's a section on it on narcotics and the movement of illegal drugs. And there's a section on it about tens of thousands of illegal pharmacies that are online at this point distributing narcotics. And 18 to 20 of those go online a day still. Can you help me understand a little more about what the FBI is doing to be able to interdict, to be able to engage, how many of those are American, how many of those are international, and what we can do to be able to stop the movement of narcotics through our mail system?
Yeah, yes, sir. So it's a great question and one that we spend a great deal of time on. As you know, the traffic of illegal narcotics is something that we, along with our partners at the DEA and other federal, state, and local law enforcement partners, have focused on for many years. We've had great success, but the issue, the threat, continues to change, continues to develop, and confront us in new ways. The profusion of illegal online pharmacies is certainly one of those ways, and quite frankly, it's something that we are learning more about, spending more time on every day.
Well, I'm glad that it is highlighted in the report with tens of thousands of these pharmacies that are out there in the distribution systems. It's no longer a drug dealer on the corner anymore. They just deliver it to your house now, and there's a whole different set of issues that we aggressively need to address on this. Director Coates, I have a question for you. We've talked often about a cyber doctrine. And it's one of the issues that keeps being raised, that other nations and nation states and actors need to understand what our boundaries are and how we're going to do this. This seems to be talked to death, and everyone that I raise it with says, yes, it needs to occur. What I need to know is who has the ball on leading out to make sure a year from now we're not talking about we need to get a cyber doctrine. I guess specifically, when we do this hearing next year, who should we hold accountable if we don't have a cyber doctrine?
Well, that's a very good question. I think all of us would agree we need a cyber doctrine because clearly it is one of the top, if not the number one threat today that we're dealing with. As you know, the president tasked an effort under the direction of former Mayor Giuliani with this. That has not led to a conclusion at this particular point in time. I don't have the details on that. I would agree with you, however, that this is a threat that our policymakers need to address. I'm hoping that when we are here next year, we will have a solid response to your question. But at this particular point in time, frankly, given the proliferation of issues that we're trying to deal with, it's almost overwhelming.
And it is, and that's been our
hands
concern
around
all along.
all of them.
There's just so many things that are flying around. This keeps getting left, and it has been for years been left. And what we need to try to figure out is how do we actually find out who's got the ball, and who do we hold to account to be able to help us work through this, or is this something that we need to be able to work through? I noticed as I read through your report, which was excellent, by the way, and all the worldwide threats. Every single section of your report, every section of it, had a section on Iran. Every part of it, that there was a threat. In fact, in one section of it, you wrote, Iran continues to be the foremost state sponsor of terrorism. Whether it was cyber, whether it is active terrorism, whether it was involvement in every different nefarious action, it seems to always circle back to Iran at some point in some way of facilitating this. So this is one of those areas that we've got to be able to figure out how to be able to deal with. Just in a broad question on it, and maybe General Stewart, you'd be the right one to be able to deal with this, but anyone could answer this. My concern is that when we're dealing with Syria, the focus seems to be on Russia in Syria or ISIS in Syria, and we're losing track of the movement of Iran through Iraq into Syria. We're losing track of what's happening in Yemen and other places. What is your perception of Iran's goal through the Middle East? Is their goal higher for Yemen, or is it higher going into Syria and into Iraq and to be able to occupy and stay? And is the perception that the Russians want to remain there, or Iran wants to remain in Syria and be the dominant force there?
Clearly, Iran views themselves as the dominant regional power. They will continue to use militia forces and asymmetric forces to achieve the aims of controlling large parts of the region. If they can't control them physically, they tend to influence them politically. Syria becomes a very key strategic point for them. It allows them to leverage the Syrian forces, Lebanese and Lebanese Hezbollah, and move capability and forces across the region. They will be in competition at some point with Russia. Russia views themselves as the regional power, at least the dominant regional power today. I'm not sure that Russian and Iran's influence will remain aligned in the long term. In the near term, they're very closely aligned as it relates to propping up and securing the Syrian regime.
All right. Thank you.
Senator Manchin.